I think very little has gone into teacher safety. They don't seem to care what we think.
Students aren't the only ones dreading going back to school. Teachers say they are terrified of returning to the classroom.
My biggest worry is that someone will die, that a student will die.
Plus, we travel to the worst place in the metro when it comes to working from home.
I describe our internet speed as being slightly ahead of 2 cans in a string.
And meet AJ, a dog responsible for making many a kid's day.
The kids love him so much.
Drive 3 hours from Denver until you just about hit Kansas and you have Prowers County. Lamar, population 7,000, is the big city, and folks from Eads sometimes drive down to go shopping at the Walmart. Well, to date, the entire county has reported fewer than 70 cases of coronavirus, and for the most part, they're getting along okay.
So why are we talking about them tonight? Well, because it took just one possible case for them to pull 6th graders out of the school and move them to online learning. In 2 days, the much larger Westminster School District will send kids back into the classroom. As Denver7's Ivan Rodriguez reports, teachers are well aware the odds are stacked against them.
When students return to school in August, safety will be the highest priority.
But some teachers in Westminster Public Schools don't trust that message.
I think that we are reopening for financial and political reasons.
Wanting to remain anonymous, this teacher is concerned the district's decision to return to in-person learning could have serious consequences.
My biggest worry is that someone will die, that a student will die, or God forbid, a student ends up inadvertently passing on COVID to a family member.
But the district says its back-to-school plan prioritizes safety and gives families options.
We're offering our families 2 options. One is to come back in person, and also another option for families who aren't quite ready for that so that they can have their students learning online.
They've also mandated masks for everyone, are distancing desks, and are checking temperatures and symptoms each day.
I think very little has gone into teacher safety. They don't seem to care what we think.
So much so that some have resigned. One teacher writing to us saying in part, "I made the difficult decision to resign from WPS because I truly felt I had become a pawn in a political game." Not once were teachers asked how we could be impacted by the decision to return. The decision was made by people who are never in the classroom. I was literally being asked to sacrifice my health and the health of my family for my job. The union representing teachers says their feelings were overwhelmingly clear.
The respondents of our survey were that 65% were uncomfortable with going back. But then that was before, and we haven't done another survey, that was before they actually got back into the schools and saw what their school plans were.
The district says it will change course if health becomes a concern. They're also giving families the next couple of weeks to switch between online and in-person learning. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver7.
And of course, virtual learning comes with its own set of challenges.
There's finding someone to look after the kids, sometimes limited access to high-speed internet, and the exhausting issue of keeping students engaged.
I know that I have a real limited capability when it comes to sitting through a Zoom meeting, so I couldn't imagine what it's like for a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? Especially if, it's not a game. Like I don't look like Elmo. I can't, so I don't have that feature, But I'm worried about fatigue, and we're definitely going to see that in these first couple weeks.
The teacher you just heard from works for Aurora, and they went back to class virtually today. Other districts seem to be constantly in flux, and we'll keep you up to date on thedenverchannel.com.
And one thing is for sure, COVID numbers will rise as students return to campus. Move-in day was only yesterday, and already 6 CU Boulder students have tested positive. In a perfect world, those students will keep to themselves, do everything right, and handle this like junior Dr. Fauci's. Of course, we don't live in a perfect world, and Governor Polis may well choose to extend the soon-to-expire last call order in the hopes of preventing late-night partying. We asked him what he'll do today, and here was his answer.
With lower numbers, I'm hopeful that we can make progress on expanding the opportunity for people to enjoy themselves, but at the same time, with the virus present, we're nowhere near a situation where we can return to living the way we did last year without giving the virus the opportunity to expand exponentially in our state, destroying our economy and costing thousands of lives.
I know, clear as mud, right? Now, the order is currently set to expire this weekend. As for today's COVID numbers, not bad. 261 cases were reported by the state this evening. 245 hospital beds are occupied by confirmed or suspected coronavirus patients.
Some good news from the fire lines tonight. Several gypsum communities are no longer under evacuation orders because of the Grizzly Creek fire. It's burned 27,000 acres over the last 8 days. Containment is weeks away. Same goes for the fires burning near Fraser and northern Colorado. Williams Fork has taken out 6,000 acres but is growing slowly. The Cameron Peak fire is upwards of 14,000 acres and burning about 4 miles outside of Rocky Mountain National Park. But the granddaddy of them all remains the Pine Gulch fire. Currently at 87,000 acres, it will be the third largest wildfire in Colorado history by tomorrow. The terrain is steep and the conditions awful, but crews have managed to keep it away from homes.
A grand jury will investigate the 35-year-old murder of Jonelle Matthews. Presumably, that means prosecutors have a suspect in the 12-year-old's disappearance. This young lady went missing after performing in a Christmas concert in December of 1984, and Jonelle's remains were discovered last year in rural Weld County.
Denver police putting out a bone-chilling image of the suspects in a fire that killed 5 people. Until now, investigators have declined to say little other than the fire was intentionally set. A $14,000 reward is being offered for information.
And Inglewood police saying tonight that a report of a shallow grave, well, it's a false alert. Officers spent all day surveying it, even brought in the FBI, and turns out it's just a hole.
Greeley police have arrested a woman for embezzling $300,000 from an oil and gas company. Monica Torres Ruiz was the HR manager for Fusion Oil Field Services. Police say she stole the identification of former employees, kept their paychecks going, and then redirected the money into her own account. All of the employees were Mexican nationals, and police say Torres Ruiz chose them because she didn't think they would file taxes.
Boulder has won the fight, but not the war over a ballot initiative. One might wonder why they're even fighting in the first place. All of this is over how many non-related people can live in a home. Boulder says no more than 3. The group called Bedrooms Are for People believes it should be 1 per bedroom plus 1 other person. And they submitted enough signatures to get their initiative on the ballot, only to be told after the fact that they had turned them in too late. Now, the city admits they gave them the wrong date, but a judge said rules are rules and there's nothing he can do about it. We spoke with the organizers today. They don't believe Boulder intended to move the goalpost, but they do think they're taking advantage of the accident by battling back and not simply using their powers to put this on the ballot.
The city and the city council have now used their error as something to weaponize against us.
And they don't want to put it on the ballot because they know it will pass. And they don't want that. They want to keep Boulder exclusive.
Bedrooms Are for People is now taking this to the Colorado Supreme Court. And because the legislation is still pending, the city will not comment.
With the year we're having, high-speed internet isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. A Parker neighborhood has given up hope their provider will fix their painfully slow connection. Tonight, they're turning to contact Denver7's Jacqueline Allen to see if she'll have better luck.
Every time Paula Fredrickson does an internet speed test, she's reminded.
We have been left behind and ignored.
She and her neighbors in Homestead Hills live less than 2 miles from downtown Parker.
We're in the middle of a city. 2 miles that way is a Starbucks.
I mean, I can see 10 houses from here that do have internet, and ours just doesn't.
Before coronavirus, their sole internet provider, CenturyLink, was a frustration.
Being slightly ahead of 2 cans in a string that you played telephone when you were a little kid. It's pathetic.
Now that people here are working from home and e-learning, CenturyLink's slow speeds have become a liability.
I have to be on video calls, I have to share documents, and I go through numerous occasions during every single workday where my internet connection causes the video to fail, documents can't load, and it's really hard for me to do my job.
But in a statement to Denver7, CenturyLink said expanding in certain areas is not economically feasible without alternative methods, such as public-private partnerships.
Is our country failing people when it comes to internet service?
Our country is definitely failing people.
Christopher Mitchell with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance says private companies like CenturyLink and Comcast can't really be regulated into expanding access.
They set the agenda, and our approach to expanding internet access has been to have them decide who gets gets it. I don't think that's worked very well for families like the ones you're talking about.
Better policies and better data about who actually has internet are needed, and millions of people without reliable service are waiting.
We pay just like everybody else, but our service is just that much slower, and they won't do anything to speed it up.
In Douglas County,
Again, I'm trying to do the right thing for my family.
Jacqueline Allen, Denver 7.
Colorado is joining several states in suing the U.S. Postal Service. This lawsuit isn't meant to hurt USPS. It's intended to save it. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser says Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has been acting outside his authority by removing mail sorting machines and cutting hours. Well, the lawsuit seems to have already had an impact. Today, DeJoy said workers will continue to receive overtime and processing machines will stay until after the election. Colorado Congressman Joe Neguse tells us DeJoy's statement is a step in the right direction, but there is more work to be done.
His announcement is merely that, is an announcement. It's a press release, and I think we need to ultimately hold the Postmaster General accountable. There's no question in my mind that there are nefarious motives at play, and ultimately I think that's why oversight of the Postal Service is going to be so incredibly important.
You can expect the Postal Service to come up during the Democratic National Convention tonight. This evening's speakers include former President Bill Clinton, Secretary of State John Kerry, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jill Biden. Headlines and coverage begins at 8 o'clock right here on Denver 7.